Consider the following parable. When Jessica was born, her wealthy grandparents set up a trust fund in her name for $1 million. All the money was to be hers as soon as she turned 25. Jessica had a younger sister named Mary, but because of some financial setbacks, the grandparents did not set up a trust fund for Mary. 2 months before her 25th birthday, Jessica was walking down the street feeling very, very hungry. Just then, her sister walked out of Chick-fil-A holding a bag of food that smelled amazing. "Will you give me that food?" Jessica asked. "I'm starving." "I'll trade you this food for your trust fund," Mary told her sister. Jessica knew the trust fund was valuable, but she was hungry at that moment, so she immediately signed the trust fund over to Mary and grabbed the bag of food. Now, you and I know that this story is ridiculous. Why would somebody trade $1 million for a bag of food? Of course, this parable is a modern retelling of the story of Jacob and Esau. Jacob and Esau were the twin sons of Rebekah and her husband Isaac. Because Esau was a few minutes older than Jacob, he received the birthright blessings that belonged to the oldest son. One day, Jacob was making a thick soup called pottage. The scripture account states, "Esau came from the field, and he was faint. And Esau said to Jacob, 'Feed me, I pray thee, with that same red pottage, for I am faint.' And Jacob said, 'Sell me this day thy birthright.' And Esau said, 'Behold, I am at the point to die, and what profit shall this birthright do to me?' And he sold his birthright unto Jacob. Then Jacob gave Esau bread and pottage of lentils, and he did eat and drink, and rose up and went his way. Thus Esau despised his birthright." Like many Old Testament accounts, there's probably a lot more to this story than the few details we have recorded. But what we have is very thought-provoking. Sister Susan Bednar, in a devotional given at BYU, Idaho, brought up several interesting questions related to Esau's choice to give away his birthright. She said, "Everything to which Esau was entitled he sold for something as insignificant as a piece of bread and a can of soup. Why? Were the promised blessings associated with the birthright too far away? Did he forget in that moment who he was as the firstborn son? Did he really intend to give up the birthright, or was it just a casual maneuver to satisfy his hunger? Was he thinking, I can give it away now and get it back later? What series of events, circumstances, and prior choices would have brought Esau to this tragic moment? From our own experience, I believe we can conclude that a grave outcome such as Esau selling his birthright is not usually the result of a sudden impulse, but rather the consequence of small incremental decisions made day by day. One principle from this story is clear. Don't trade what matters most for what you want now. There are many applications of this principle. For example, prioritize scripture study, even if other things seem more urgent. Make healthy lifestyle choices, even when other options seem more appealing, and so forth. While I don't always get it right, here's one time when I was able to resist the temptation to metaphorically trade my birthright for a mess of pottage. I was putting all my kids to bed one evening, and I don't know if you've ever tried to put several kids to bed at the same time. It's like that game Whack-A-Mole. As soon as you get one person in bed, another jumps out. Well, after a lot of effort, all the kids were in bed except one. And I was looking forward to some downtime so I could check social media and read the news, but that last child just did not want to go to bed. Instead, she wanted to tell me about a story she was writing in school. She described the story in great detail and length. It was a good story, but it was a long story. After about 5 minutes, I was really tempted to pull up my phone and start multitasking. Would it really matter if I scrolled through the news while I was listening to my child? But I realized that looking at my phone while she was talking might communicate to her a message like, "You're not that important to me." So I patiently listened and listened and listened some more. And at the end of her description, she asked, "Well, Dad, do you like my story?" I truthfully replied, "I love it, honey. You have great ideas." She smiled and then said, "Dad, you're the first person who has ever listened to my whole story." She gave me a big hug and went to bed. I thought a lot about the privilege I had of being the first person to ever hear her whole story. What would she have felt if I had cut her off or multitasked while I was listening to her? I would have traded a special parenting moment for some meaningless digital messages. It isn't always easy to put the most important things first. And to be honest, I'm nowhere near perfect in this department. But when I remember the story of Jacob and Esau, it's a reminder that in dozens of ways, you and I metaphorically choose between birthright blessings and messes of pottage. The more our focus is on Jesus Christ, the better able we will be to choose what matters most.